So, startups in the audience, please tell me what's the most important thing that an investor can bring to you. What's the thing that you need from an investor? I was hoping for this answer because I don't believe the money is the key thing. So, in building a relationship with an investor, I believe the 3 steps are very, very important. It's not just about building the relationship when you already get invested. First, I think you have to know what you need, know what your company needs, because it's a very, very sort of, every startup is different and every investor is different, of course. And that's why this presentation we also have, in the end, I'll leave quite a bit of time for questions and answers, because I think that's a very, very important thing here, because it's impossible to cover everything. And then based on knowing your needs, you need to find the right investor. Investors are very different, bring different kinds of, sources of money, different profiles. You need to, connect as a person. And in the end, it's very important to never stop building on the relationship, because in many ways, you can look at it as finding a partner for your life, because it's quite similar to that. So knowing what you need. What does your startup actually need? Do you need a lot of money to scale? And are you super experienced? Then the source of money really doesn't matter. Do you need connections? Do you need people within the industry that can bring you that? Do you need, references? Do you need whatever? And investors contribute. I was hoping it would be 4 C's, but it isn't. But they contribute generally cash, connections, credibility, and knowledge. And knowing what your startup needs, it's most of the work done, because then you can find the right person. Money, there are different sources of it. If an investor is public money backed, they usually have less industry experience and are less entrepreneurial, not always. So that means that you need to be more experienced and put in more work, because they can help you less. I'm generalizing, but it's mostly true. Connections the same. You can get money from anyone if you know your industry. If you have been in this industry for some time, then you know the people that you need to approach. Otherwise, find a person that is in the industry, that is well connected, that can make introductions. They will also give you credibility, because face it, you're a startup, you're nobody, you're somebody who's just starting out, and a big name, a big corporation, maybe a big investor, a well-known person, they can make a huge difference when you're talking to clients. You're backed by somebody who is well-known, and this gives your startup more credibility than a lot of other things that you can do. Of course, you need a good product, you need a good team and everything, but it's the first check on the sort of board of what the people want to hear. And knowledge, of course, of how things actually work, because with startups, especially with first-time founders, they don't really know what is going on in this industry, how things work, where money is actually made, and a good investor can make a massive difference here. So how do you find the right investor? Of course, it's not easy. It's often I've often heard a comparison between guys and girls in a club, because in the end, it's similar. Startups are always talking to investors, trying to approach them, trying to find them. And of course, investors want to invest because that's their thing, but they don't want to talk to just random people who don't have any relevance for them. So do your homework, make sure you approach the right person, approach the investor, or even more importantly, there's usually a group of people involved in, especially in VCs, and find the right person within the VC to talk to. It makes a massive, massive difference, because if you can find a believer, half of your work is done, because they will help you, convince other people who are making the decision in the end. And where can you find them? You can go to conferences, but what you can do there is very limited. I've been recently to Web Summit, 2,100 startups. How will you possibly be something special there when you're standing next door? I mean, I saw Trello, which everybody knows, standing next shoulder to shoulder with some guys who barely had a product. It's really, really difficult. And of course, if you know that you're a superstar and that everybody will realize the massive, enormous potential that you have, sure, go. But it is incredibly difficult. So be creative, break the rules even. I was at Web Summit, I was talking to one of the guys who used to organize it, and he said, if a startup wants to be successful at this conference, they really, really have to break the rules. And I saw only one startup who did something like that. They bought an investor ticket and just went into the lounge and networked like crazy. But in the end, be creative. It's the same as being a startup in any other field. You have to know and have to figure out something new. And how do you approach them? The presentation before lunch had the Bartek had a lot to say about this, and I agree completely. Don't cold call, don't cold email. Find somebody. Ideally, find a startup they invested in because it's somebody they trust. They put money in them. Of course, they're in a relationship already. Find one of those startups. Get a referral. Get a referral from somebody in the ecosystem. Find a way to approach them on a personal level. Never, ever, ever talk position to position. Don't talk a CEO to a managing partner. Talk human to human. They like sports. They like to have a good beer, whatever. Make sure you start building a relationship before you actually need anything from them. Ask them for advice. Find them at the conference and just say, so what do you think are the trends that are going on in the region or in the industry? This is what I'm doing. Do you think it's viable at all? And get building, before you actually need to build. Because once you need to start, it's usually too late. And okay, term sheets are on the table, signed, NDA signed. The process went well. I've got the money. What to do now? Well, again, the most important thing is don't be that startup, and it does happen. Don't be that startup who doesn't pick up the phone once the last tranche is on their account. Look, somebody put money into your business. You're in this together. They want this to work as much as you do. And so why not use that? They're willing to help you. You found the right person. You connected on a personal level. So why not use this wonderful, experienced person that can help you in more ways than you can imagine? Don't forget that. It's huge value. And prove to them that you can do a lot of things on your own and they will do more for you. Because in the end, investors know that only the top few startups are actually going to make money back for them. So make sure they see you as a winner because they focus on the winners. They won't waste time on you if they know that they could make 50 million more if they put the same amount of time in a company that's doing great already. It's very much, like a marriage. You have to work on it every day. And, I recently read a post by Fred Destin from Excel Partners, and he said the worst thing you can have is boring board meetings. So make sure that when they come into your board meeting, when they come to see your company, when you're talking to them again and again and again, that you're not wasting their time. They can help you on the big stuff. They will help you. They want to hear how the big stuff is going, and don't include them and hassle them with miniature stuff. So my secretary's sick. How can I find a new one? No. It's self-explanatory, but I think it needs to be said. So make sure in the end that you work on the relationship every single day and every single quarter, and focus on your business well. When you've got big issues or big problems or big questions, leverage on this person for whom you've made sure that they're the right person. They can help you in this. They know the field. And as I said, the most of the work is done before the actual investment. What you need to make sure is like in a relationship, you probably wouldn't just, you know, stay your whole life with somebody you've just met. So make sure you start working on building an investor network before you actually need money, because then you have a few choices, you have a few people to turn to. It's not just, oh damn, I'm running out of money, I need to grab the first guy that comes along. No, that's the worst that can happen. It can work out, but it's really difficult. It's so much more work in the end. Because if you find the right investor, the relationship will work out on its own. It will be fixed, it will work. It's not that difficult, but you need to make sure that before that you find the right person, the right company, that you are the right company for them, that they're, you know, from your industry. If you're, as I said, if you're super experienced in everything, it really doesn't matter where you get the money from. But probably, especially in this region, I see a lot of first-time founders, which is great, but that means that everything else has to be as ideal as possible, because they need to make sure that everything works out. So thanks for the attention, and please ask as many questions as possible, because every startup is different, and you know, there's no one way of tackling this.